Okay, good morning, good evening, good night. How you doing, people? Once again, we're doing a live little thing right down here in Finsbury Park. There's 1, 2, 3, 4 of us today, and it's really, this is called What's the Word? And it's really just a commentary on how we feel on certain subjects that's actually in the news at the moment, or even it may be even something we personally experience out there that is not normally recognized, or it is normally recognized but people kind of ignore it. So we're just going to bring it to your attention. So we're going to start off today's little chat by asking a personal question, and it's what kind of meal do you like to have? It's sort of your main meal. What does it sort of consist of? You know, it doesn't have to be you, but it could be the ideal meal. May, what's your ideal, or it could even be a date. If somebody took you out to a restaurant, what kind of, what do you?
I think that, when I think of the ideal meal, whatever, it's more what you need. You need people. If you have food, you need people as well, because part of having a really enjoyable meal is conversation and sharing and a visual. So the nicest, the most enjoyable meals.
Is that candlelights and wine?
You know, wine helps. Wine helps, but that's you know, not everybody needs wine. I enjoy having good wine, or having people who enjoy having good wine. It's also nice, and if you know that whoever your host is, or you are the host, that you are a good chef or a good cook, and you know how to present food. So how it looks is always important. Is always important to me. And maybe the meals that I enjoy most is a reasonably large table with 4 or 6 sort of people around, different sort of age groups, people you know well. And that there's a bit of animated conversation going out, where it's like it goes from left to right. You know, you pick up on the conversation, and it's pleasurable, and it's, you know, there's a fair degree of speed with conversation going on, and that everything that is cooked is complementary. One dish is complementary to the other, and I suppose I quite like wine. I quite like people having sort of like at least 2 bottles of wine on the table. And I suppose preferably in the evening, where you have, also one of the ingredients of having a really nice meal is that you have time, you're not under pressure to disappear off someplace or be someplace or do something. So it's just a relaxed social interaction, and it's an excuse to sort of like show off how good you are at sort of cooking and presenting.
Right, before we move on to Graham, that reminds me of that program they have, I think it's Channel 4, where they have guests around.
Come Down With Me.
What's it called?
Come Down With Me.
And then they choose whoever wins, and it kind of reminds me of that. Graham, what's your ideal?
And these days you have vegan, and at an average table you will have somebody who's vegan, somebody who's vegetarian, and somebody who's an absolute wholesale meat eater.
Carnivorous.
Yeah, and combine the entire lot.
Carnivorous, carnivores. I like it. Rare. Still running around. Graham, tell us about what you...
Well, I just sort of eat. I don't really have any. I live on my own. I don't have any particular food thing, but I've noticed I'm becoming more flexitarian. When I
What?
Flexitarian.
What the hell is that?
Well, that's one of these new words. That means that I eat meat and vegetable, but I eat more vegetable. So I'm probably sometimes half to 3/4 vegetarian, and I'm doing that mostly for health reasons. I like the taste of meat, but when I eat more and more vegetables because it makes me feel nicer. It's lighter, and also there's less of the meat fats. Maybe there's vegetable fats which are healthier, but there's less meat. Meat fats are a big cause of obesity and heart problems.
Why do people give themselves this label? Meat eaters, vegetarian, pescatarian. Taking the pescatarian.
I don't know. I mean, the thing.
What did you call yourself?
Flexitarian. Yeah. I don't know.
All right. Yeah, okay. Shazz. What you got to say on food? Main meal, main diet. Is there? Do you like it? 4 legs. you like animals that have 4 legs? 2 legs.
No, I don't eat no red meat.
Okay.
And I do not eat chicken, so I'm maybe a pescatarian. I eat fish sometimes, but mainly, like Graham said, vegetables. If I do eat any food, there's always more veg than anything else. So I'm leaning towards more like the vegan side because I have a lot more days where I don't eat no meat.
Well, my best friend is a vegetarian, and when I go to visit him, go to Bristol to visit him, we always have vegetable sort of meals. And he's a very good cook, and it's delicious.
Well,
it's lovely.
The Indians were good because they do a vegan vegetarian curry, and they did that long before this trendy thing.
Well, you say that, but
it was their religion, wasn't it?
Rastafari's been eating idol food for a long time, which is what you would another word for
ital food.
Ital food, which is like no meat again. So it's just another word for veganism. Rastafari's been eating like that from before it was fashionable. So
Do you know? Give us a little bit more about the vegetables and stuff in Jamaica. Is it spinach? Is it what kind of?
There's
fruits?
so many different.
Yam.
You've got breadfruit, you've got okra, a lot of the fruit and vegetables you've got green banana, your plantain, yams. There's a lot of vegan food, Caribbean vegan food that is quite good for you.
Okay, that's good. Yes.
Well, I read that in many poor parts of the world, people eat very little meat because it's expensive. So partly the climate allows them to grow lots of vegetables, and they eat a lot of vegetables. It's the easiest thing to grow and to eat, and it's very cheap for them.
Forget about cheap.
So
it's good for your health, because my grand's always said to me, quality is better than quantity. We can say, it's cheaper to eat vegetables, but a lot of the time when you go to restaurants, the vegan meal or the salads are very expensive in England.
But here's what, right? Depending on where you're at, when they have the swarm of locusts, do you know they eat that as a delicacy?
Yeah.
Right?
Oh yeah.
What the Chinese? How many variety of different kind of the crickets? There's fried crickets.
They eat disgusting stuff.
Right? There's grubs that you find in trees and stuff, right? So in one sense, you can adapt to your environment. If not, your environment will adapt to eating you. But you adapt to your environment. There's one thing that really gets me sometimes when I see these thing when they ask for fundraising for famine in Africa and what have you, and you see a child with a bloated stomach, right? Now, the stuff they've given that child, if they gave that child what that child normally eats locally, that child will be healthy. What they've decided to do is give them this biscuits and starchy stuff which bloats them up. I in fact get bloated up when I eat bread and what have you, right? And they constantly show these children with a bloated stomach, right, and runny nose, right, and it's from the stuff they have given the child, they've imported, not if they've given the child the local stuff and what their digestive system is used to. Also, the funny thing about diet is that whatever you were brought up on when you were younger, it will be the most, where you're from, your body and your people have learned to live on that. It is now part of you. There's that saying about one man's meat is another man's poison. It is literally so.
Yes.
So as you grow older and you move away, the food in this new place can be toxic to you, right? And I think this is what over here, food-wise, with people.
Well, funny you said that, because for many Chinese people, they've lived for a long time without milk. Except maybe possibly in Manchuria. I don't know enough about this. There's always clauses in all statements. But maybe in the far north of Manchuria, maybe they have cows there. I don't know enough about it, so don't quote me here. But generally speaking, they don't drink milk, and their bodies are not adapted to take milk, so they have reactions. But the Europeans and Europeans have cultivated like cows,
drinking milk,
and the North Americans for such a long time that they're very lactose tolerant.
But as he said,
genetically,
let me
which is
just
strange, evolution.
touch on that. England and America are like the two main countries that adults still drink milk past infancy. Why? It doesn't even make sense. Like, why do we drink milk as adults?
Why would you want to be judgmental on people that have a different
I'm not being
diet from you?
judgmental, I'm having an opinion, which I'm entitled to. But what I'm saying is, after infancy, what is the need for milk?
Right, and if you go back to diet,
Okay, you have no answers.
yeah,
No, I don't have an answer. I really don't understand the question. The question doesn't have, it doesn't ring a bell. It doesn't.
Right, so most babies drink milk, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and women are able to breastfeed children. Yeah. Now, after infancy, we continue to give them milk. Why?
I mean,
nobody can answer that.
This has no relevance. I just enjoy it.
This is definitely
I'm
a
not talking
question.
about infancy, I'm talking about
This is definitely a question for the ladies. The men can't answer this one.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
The men can't answer. This is the ladies' one. This is where the ladies of the village.
For instance, you have cereal and milk.
Yeah.
There are so many sort of children who have cereal and milk for breakfast before they go to school.
Yummy, yummy.
And they're perfectly healthy.
Right.
And
now,
if, for example, I come from Ireland, and traditionally it's sort of farming and whatever, and there is actually an excess of dairy farming. That's also because of the EEC and all the rest of it, the subsidies. But we've never thought of milk as being anything other than a healthy product.
this is my point.
It depends on, it's like anything else. If you take too much of something, if you rely too heavily on any one ingredient, then it's out of kilter.
But like what Graham said about being lactose tolerant and lactose intolerant. Now, me personally, I don't believe that people are lactose intolerant. I just believe that we shouldn't be drinking cow's milk.
Oh, okay, well, yeah.
We shouldn't be drinking cow's milk because this is my point. I always say to people, would you drink dog's milk?
Okay. So
Would you drink cat's milk? No, but come on, let's be realistic.
Would
you drink dog's milk?
Are you happy
Or
with
cat's
cheese?
milk?
Are you happy with cheese?
No, let me just make a point. Would you drink any other animal milk apart from cow's milk? People drink
I
goat's
would,
milk.
I would,
Goat's
yeah,
milk
I
is
would,
available.
I would.
Cow's milk is available.
No.
You would drink dog's milk.
Goat's milk.
Would you drink a dog's milk?
Yes, why not?
Well, that's your answer.
Why not?
Well,
So if you would drink a dog's milk, then and that's normal to you, which is not normal to anybody else, I don't see why we're drinking cow's milk. That still doesn't explain. Like there ain't no health benefits, and this has now been proven.
Is
It
it
doesn't do
haram?
anything.
Are you talking about the concept of a halal and haram?
No, I'm not talking
Is-
about.
are there-
no, you're putting words in my mouth.
Is
I'm talking about
there other
dairy.
things which are evil
No.
that people do that make
We're
them
not talking
evil?
about
Is
evil,
there an
we're talking about
emanation of
food.
evilness?
We're talking about food, Graham.
Well, if you're in the plane and
Rice
this actually, sorry,
I
ma'am.
said rice pudding.
Okay, now.
Yeah, my daughter used to eat that. I stopped eating all that. We don't eat any cow's milk. My daughter's
Cheese.
she's gone. Yeah, we
The
buy
whole-
vegan cheese now
But
as
if,
well.
for example, you sort of say milk,
Hallelujah.
you sort of demonize milk or whatever.
Hallelujah.
I'm not
That's
demonising it. I'm just
Praise
saying
the
it's
Well,
not
if you,
good.
sort of, if you are promoting its sort of extinction in some respects,
Rebellion.
really, but that entire range of cheeses that are I mean, to the palate, they are absolutely magnificent. You would wipe that whole culture out.
Culture. That's a good word
think
because
culture.
it's live culture. The milk and the cheese is live culture.
Oh, yeah,
It's
that
live.
is so good. Yeah, that is
After watching the
Culture.
program about how they make
Culture.
cheese, especially in the
Petri dish.
the type with the mold in it and stuff.
Oh.
Basically, they leave it to mold and the milk. Like when you watch documentaries about how food is processed and how they make the food to make the cheese, which is gone off milk. Yeah, so it's stale milk that makes cheese. Yeah, and all the other ones that you have, like with the fermented stuff in it that gives it the taste that everybody loves. Yeah, this is all gone off. It's stale.
So that you mean you would
How-
you
how
like
would
the
you want it-
population of Mongolia to die rather than drink milk?
Now talking about Mongolia,
We're not talking about death.
and
Would you
We're
eat
talking about
mushrooms?
I do
They
like
drink fermented milk.
Well,
That's a natural form of
That's
fungus.
their
But it's
That is
fermented-
a natural form of
fermented
fungus. It
milk.
grows in that form.
Yeah,
That's a different, and mushrooms have very much benefits, way more than milk.
yeah.
So you
Right.
can't compare mushrooms and cheese
Well, I
or
can
milk.
see a relationship between the fermentation and all the rest
No,
of it and milk.
I don't. After
And
watch- I watch a lot of
different,
food
but complementary
documentaries,
to,
and this is
in-
why I
in
don't-
mushrooms.
I don't involve myself in certain. Like, all right, let's take example the meat. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now I watched the food documentary on Channel 4 on TV, and they spoke about meat. Now red meat. Yeah, I don't eat red meat anymore. Now, what they say is after the meat is killed and whatnot, it's dead, and then it starts to go off, or it starts to change colour.
there's a word for it. There's a word for
It's
it.
been dead for a while.
Yeah.
What they then do
Mm.
is rub the meat
Mm.
in blood to make it look fresh. Now, if that is not disturbing to anybody, then I don't know what is.
No, there is a word for it.
Color is added to
No,
some
No, the
But-
blood
whole
is
range of
to make it look fresh.
Yeah,
when
but
it's not
there is
fresh.
there is a word for it. With the pheasants, the pheasants when they
You
shoot
hang
them,
them.
what do they call it? And some
Hanging.
no, it's a process. And when they smoke the fish and thing, what do they call it? Curing.
Curing.
Yeah.
Curing.
Yeah.
Right, so different people have different methods of curing. I know some of the Eskimos and stuff, when they catch their fish, they will immediately put it in salt,
Yeah.
right, as a kind of preservative or what,
Preservative, yeah.
right? Right, yeah. So that is a process. Food is really now the question I was going to pose to you guys and talking about mountains and talking about the dog and the milk and stuff is if this actually happened. There was a plane crash in a mountain, and it was in the snow.
Oh,
Carry on the story, Graham. Tell us what it is.
you're talking
How long
about
ago?
one of the rare and maybe in the 70s possibly, I don't
It's a
know.
true story.
But
Yeah,
but
no.
but you're talking about the
It's
cannibalism.
called Alive. The
Yes.
movie is called Alive.
and yeah, it was a big taboo.
To survive, they had to basically eat the dead human.
So what would you guys do? Shall I ask you?
Me when I'm dead. Sorry. That's all I have to say. I'll be dead.
I've no idea.
I'm sure you would have tasted
I'm
it.
No.
sitting here comfortable.
But you wouldn't know.
I'm
You wouldn't
plenty
know.
food around me.
You didn't get my joke, did you?
I've got a horrible suspicion. Of me that I would.
You wouldn't taste very
want,
good.
That I would so want to. If there was any possibility of me continuing being alive
Yeah.
at nobody else's expense.
Well, the bodies are already dead, mind you.
Yeah,
They're
yeah.
already dead.
I have a
Unfrozen.
horrible suspicion
It's coming.
What's that? That you would eat.
that my
Instinct.
urgency to stay alive, in the vague possibility that that things might get better, that I might be rescued in that extra moment. I have a horrible.
I would have just prayed, God, come and take me now. This
no,
is my time.
but you don't know.
God.
You actually don't know
God.
what your reaction would be.
Devil.
You know, it is uncharted territory for you.
All right,
I think you wouldn't. I think a person wouldn't actually know, because I think your will and something that is more
Survival skills.
deep. Your unconscious would have a conversation, and it's hard to know. It is. I think until you're in that situation,
Yeah, I
you
think
might
Mace
not
right to an
know.
extent what you would do.
The balance would be,
All right, now so
So I don't know.
people of African descent or people from deep Africa and some of these strange islands, it is said that they were cannibals. That's where the word is.
Caribbean.
No. Is it?
Yes, Caribbean is coming from the word.
No, you're pulling my leg there.
No, because the British Navy,
Yeah.
right, told that their sailors who were press ganged
Yeah.
and would love to run away,
Yeah.
and often did run away,
Yeah.
and join the native Caribs,
Local
right?
people, yeah.
Who and Arawaks and
Yeah.
Tainos,
Mm.
right? But mostly the Caribs had fought back very. They had a warrior
Yeah.
group, and to frighten their sailors from running off and joining them,
Yeah.
right? They told them that these Caribs were cannibals, and so they remained with their monstrous officers, putting up with horrendous conditions, rather than run away and take their chances of being eaten
So when
by
they-
Caribs. Caribs were. By the way, I'm going to make a disclaimer. Caribs were not cannibals. Caribs ate. I don't know what they ate.
Right. So when the captain of the ship said to the sailors, when the natives invite you for Sunday lunch, they're saying you are the Sunday lunch. Right. So I understand that. Okay. Now I'm going to move you to.
Do you remember in early 1960s
Cartoons?
the cartoons and the films
With the bone and the big pots.
the cooking pot,
Yeah.
yes, and cooking the missionary stew,
Right. Now that's still.
with potato.
Yeah. Do you believe that image still exists? Do you believe people still believe
No,
that?
I think they use yams.
All right. Now I could jump onto the critical race theory there, but I won't. But I'll move on to religion. Right. Now we still haven't answered the question whether you believe that there were cannibalism or there is tribes out there that do eat people.
In history, right? It's exceptionally rare, and it's often done for ritualistic purposes, like eating the heart of an
All right,
enemy.
you moved into the next subject then.
Like
Right.
a warrior,
Yeah.
a warrior king,
Mm.
because they were seen as brave. So the metaphor, right, which was personified,
What about bringing
into
in-
eating their heart.
Yes.
So these things, right, are mythologized,
Mm.
right, for deliberate purposes, but they're mythologized. And many of the arguments that people have are based on very superficial nonsense and judgmentalism, where they want to point the finger at each other without full knowledge of the actual the history, right, which is obscured deliberately. Of course it's obscured.
Now let me bring you onto a
And
subject.
superficialized.
Right. Same cannibalism, but in a sort of different thing. Have all of you been to church?
At one stage, yes.
Right. Have you been to this?
Not since I was a teenager,
All right.
I know.
Have you been?
When I was in East Germany, I visited the Protestant the church, because
Right.
they were. I had some radical colleagues who were in there, and they were talking about the democracy movements and that. And
All right. Could anybody tell me what the Holy Communion is? Somebody describe it to me.
Is it a metaphor, right, of ingesting the body of Christ,
Go
or
on.
the blood, something to do with the goodness? So internalizing it, taking the.
What's the words they use? You've used.
I remember
So basically
being given
the
a
blood of the
wafer,
flesh they eat, is that
eating
what
the
you're
body
trying
of
to get
Christ, and the wine, which I've
Symbolises
always
the
been
blood.
teetotal. So I eat from young.
Cannibalism there.
So to drinking the blood of wine.
So what's the words you
No,
would
it
use?
wasn't real blood. It was
It's
a
not
metaphor.
just Catholic people that do that, they do it in many churches. Like even I've come from a Pentecostal church and we practice that as well. So basically it's usually done around Easter time, I think. And you have a bit of bread, or they give you this little thing that, well, it used to be bread, but it's like this little thing you put and it melts on your tongue, which symbolises the flesh of Jesus Christ, and the wine is representation of the blood of Jesus. Yeah. So I get what he's trying to say. It's a kind of cannibalism, and that they kind of celebrate in church, to say, oh well, we're gonna drink the blood and eat the flesh.
You mean a metaphorical cannibalism?
Metaphorically, yes. Yeah. But even metaphorically, in a mindset, it's still the mindset that you're ingesting, that you're eating the flesh and drinking the blood. I don't fully agree
But
with that as
nobody,
well. That's what
I was brought up a Catholic, and obviously I was.
Oh, why didn't you speak up earlier?
Well, because there are lots of different subjects. Because you might not. First of all, you don't want to misrepresent something. So instead of misrepresenting something, you will remain quiet about something. And also, I mean, what you're saying is sort of true, but in essence, I sort of think it is. It's completely sort of different, really. Is that when people go and have Holy Communion, whatever, it is the ritual of receiving something, participating in receiving sort of something. It's only you're just sort of saying it's a moment of sort of acknowledgement, or a second of acknowledgement, that you are part of something that you believe
one blood,
in.
one flesh.
Yes, that you are part of a family, in a sort of sense, that you are, and you. So I sort of think it is really utterly divorced from all this sort of thing. It's more.
Is it?
Is
it conflation? That word and inflation is the two one ways, but we'll bring that back. Conflation, go on.
And I sort of think also it possibly works a little bit in the sense that it's almost like a moment of quiet.
So in my voodoo church, when we ring the chicken's neck and we drink the blood,
there's a tiny degree of sort of self reflection in the sort of the ritual, really. It doesn't have to be a negative, and it almost doesn't have to be a religious sort of thing. It's a sort of.
It is religious though, isn't it? It's something that's practiced within religion.
Yeah, but I think it has a sort of an individuality, that people have their own idea of.
Me personally, I grew up in church. I never really understood it growing up. You know, like the flesh and the blood. And obviously, when I got older and saw things that were practiced in the church, because I be real, I'm not really Christian or religion, but I grew up as a Christian with a family that was very religion orientated, and some of them still are and practice that. I don't. I'm lean more to the spiritual side. Now, a lot of Christian people will say things like to spiritual people, oh, a lot of those spirituals, oh, that's not very Christian, like, oh, that's not of God, oh, that's witchcraft, and that's this, which is fine, everybody's due to their opinion. But then when you look at religion now, and this example of eating the blood and the flesh, this is a very ritual-like thing to do within religion. So they will look at other spiritualities, or which people say about the Haitians, they get all them things happening to them because they do witchcraft and voodoo, and that's why all them things happen to them.
But they've never had witches. How can they do witchcraft when they don't have a concept of a devil? A devil is a European concept which was imposed on them.
Yes, but what I'm saying is Christian people will look at stuff like this and demonize it. That's my point. But there you are doing a whole ritual, eating Jesus' flesh and his blood, whether it's mythological or not. The concept is to do with your mind. Do you get what I'm trying to say? If in your mind you think, oh, I'm going to eat the flesh and the blood and I'm going to be one, then that is crazy. I'm sorry.
I don't think people think like that.
No, don't, exactly. People think up to their own understanding. Yeah. People can only understand and perceive.
I think people come to an arrangement of what it is that they are doing. They come to their own arrangement of what something means.
What it means. But
when if you look at a flower, you come to your own arrangement of what it is that you are looking at.
Like they say, bees don't bother telling flies why pollen's better than shit. You know what I'm saying? Like a bee has no business telling a fly that, because they have different businesses to deal with.
I sort of think that what people have that they may not be that aware of is that their imagination. It's like in all our sort of day, we are constantly using our imagination it's like you're floating millions of different things together, and
Not everybody's just using their imagination. Some people are actually using their critical thinking to
Well,
understand
you
stuff.
you don't have to be
Imagination
they don't
is
have
one
to be
thing.
they don't have to be separate. They can run sort of, all those things can run parallel.
In concurrence.
I was going to ask Graham for his conclusion and his analytic, but something just came to mind. Do you know the two sisters that got killed in Harrow up on the hill, and the police decided to take pictures with the girls?
Yeah.
And but how it links into this was the guy who killed them. What was his belief?
No idea.
Satanism?
I don't know. Come on.
He believed he had to slay a certain amount of people, women, so that he can get luck.
Look.
Right, luck to win the lottery or something.
Right, now this is what I'm saying, people's imagination, yeah? So this is him using his imagination, and this is not a very good use of imagination.
No,
So
obviously
this is
not.
what I'm saying, if you don't use critical thinking and logical thinking,
Yeah.
sometimes imagination will run
Yeah.
away with
Yeah,
you too
no,
far.
but I'm not sort of,
Because he
I'm not-
definitely ran away with him, if that's
but
what
I'm
his
not,
motive was
I'm
to
not
kill
sort of saying
women.
that you wouldn't use your critical analysis.
But I'm saying some people don't.
Yeah,
That's what I'm
yeah,
saying. You're
yeah,
speaking about
yeah,
imagination.
yeah.
This is a man that conjured up something in his imagination that he thought was then okay to kill people.
Either
to
that-
think that he was going to
Yeah.
receive luck.
Yeah.
His imagination went way too far.
Yeah. Either that or that is what he said afterwards.
It's possible that he
And what would
was
be the
mentally
reason?
ill.
What would be the reason?
And
Another
he would have
reason?
to, he would have to present some logic to what he has done.
Alright, but what would have been another excuse rather than the one given?
That he would get a lighter sentence.
A
Or
lighter
a
sentence
different
for what?
sentence.
He
For what,
Then-
being crazy?
For being crazy. Yes.
well,
Because
Insanity.
a doctor, 10 years later or 5 years later can sort of say you are no longer crazy. Whereas if you are in prison for life,
you make a good defense lawyer.
It
No.
may be a slower process.
So the insanity one.
If he wanted to kill people, why didn't he join the army?
Alright.
How are you giving people ideas?
Talking about the army, what did y'all think about the cenotaph on Sunday?
The what?
Oh, what is it? The
Hellfest
cenotaph.
for the Queen. Is she nearly dead?
Shh.
Sorry.
You know something?
Right, they come out every year, right? They line up, look, Holy for Poppy and people from all over the world, and including the Commonwealth as well. And is it commemorate, celebrate, mark? What is it?
Memory. In remembrance.
Memorial.
It's not celebration.
Well, a
Not
memorial is a
celebration,
sort
but
of celebration, isn't it? Because that looks like a celebration to me.
In memory of. That's the visual sort of spectacle, whatever. Yes, and I can see why you would sort of say that. But no, it's in commemoration.
Mm.
Why is the
It's not a celebration.
why is the Irish
It's a celebration.
Irish
So
Republican
they
Army
go for
right? When the Irish Republican Army celebrate their dead, now I'm not on any of these
What, the
people's
IRA?
sides really, but that is not good. That is seen as bad. But it's called an army. So which army, right, is the good army and which is the bad army? What if in Germany the group of far right people celebrated their war dead from the Wehrmacht, right, or the SS? You see, I don't really get
Sometimes I
this.
think language isn't the most helpful. I was listening to when they played The Last Post. Yeah, but if you listen to it,
To what?
it is a.
Is that when they do? They stand very still.
Well,
Do.
Well, anyway.
But see, my thing is with this now, you're having a whole memorial, you've done all of this, all of these people, all these
This is
poppies out,
religion.
the army, but then there are still, look, half of these soldiers that are on the street, homeless, that have, came from the war, had psychological problems and didn't get any assistance. So what exactly are you celebrating?
We're talking about
It's not a
metaphor.
celebration.
Metaphorical.
It is.
No,
Right?
no, it's
If
not
people
a-
come together,
Metaphor.
No, that's not a celebration.
if people come together in any shape or form,
It's to
that
commemorate,
is
but
a
it's not a
celebration.
No, it's
Commemoration, celebration,
No,
memorial.
it's
It's
not.
all the same thing. A
No.
funeral is still a
It's a-
celebration as well. A funeral is still a celebration.
Is it voodoo or you do
an
that?
acknowledgement.
A funeral is a celebration of someone's
it's an
life.
acknowledgement.
So when you have a
Exactly.
memorial,
I know.
it's to remember them.
I
Yeah,
know.
so it is a sort of celebration. Any people who
Right.
gather together,
Shall I-
coming
no,
together.
shall I
it's
tell you
like
what
a
my
celebration.
It's a
acknowledgement-
commemoration. It's an acknowledgement that in a war, both sides suffer. Both sides. Whether you are German, whether you are Russian, whether you're England, everybody suffers in war. It's a commemoration and it's a respect.
Alright, so people suffer in war. Why do we still go to war then?
For the tragedy of
Why don't we
war.
stop the suffering then?
I
Yes, I agree with
commemorate,
you.
I
I agree
commemorate
with you.
this suffering every time I get on the overground, because when a courageous member of the homeless fraternity walks along, right, and prepares to defy social stigma and
This is getting complicated.
asks,
I'm going to bring him back. Don't worry.
Asks-
He's gone AWOL.
asks,
It's got AWOL. I'll bring it back.
asks for a little bit of voluntary social welfare, I reach deep into my welfareised pocket and I take out the amazing sum of 5 pence, sometimes 10, to show my generosity and my love for not just my nation, but humanity.
Graham, tell
This brave creature walks down the train. I salute them.
Graham, tell me about World War One and World War Two, where we had soldiers from the Indian. They call them. I hate this word when they say Asian. What does it mean? Anyway, we're not going to go into that Asian or black or whatever. The soldiers from the Hindu soldiers, the soldiers from Pakistan, India. Tell me.
Africa.
Well,
Caribbean.
Shall I tell you the worst thing that I found out was that African soldiers were not allowed guns, they had wood.
Are you surprised by this? Why are people
No,
surprised by this? I don't
no,
understand.
when-
Black people have always been oppressed and we still are.
No, you've asked me a good question. Very good, I'll answer that. I was surprised about it because that's part of my journey. I mean, 20 years ago when I first, now I'm not, but that's by hindsight I'm not surprised. So you'll see, I'm all, because you see, we're all, even as we're here, we're learning together. We're learning together. So, you know, I mean, there are things that you could say that shocked me, but that's also part of a learning. So I'm developing. You could say things that shocked me, but we're learning and developing. So yes. So when somebody says, why doesn't that surprise you? Well, the why is it's a sort of judgmentalism. But put the why aside. Does that surprise you? Well, the first new knowledge is the surprise. I mean, for instance, the person who might have been very right wing volunteered to go to Iraq, Afghanistan, and fight for the royal family against these uncivilized
Taliban.
Taliban.
Yeah.
Who let's give them the benefit of the doubt. You know, they thought they were against.
Wait a minute, what happened with Afghanistan again?
Now then.
Did they win that one?
Now when they've been
No, they had to call back.
when they've been discharged and they cut and they were now homeless, right?
Okay, that's
You see, you could say to them, why aren't you surprised that would happen to you? Well, you see, they are in a state of surprise, and many of them actually suffer from mental illness because of that.
PSD.
But the point is not. The point is not the surprise, but the point is that they are in a learning process. Unfortunately, what they've learned is not televised. They are not given the microphones. The microphone is given to the kings and queens and princes and dukes and exactly yes, the arms dealers, etc., etc. Yes.
May, I'm going to go over to you now.
Well, the Stalinist far left
Right.
are often seen as heroes. I mean, for me, my Marxism has got nothing to do with these ranks of the Chinese army that disgust me.
All right, May, I'm going to go over to you now. The Irish contingency. We got the Irish Guards. We got the Queen Mother used to have the Irish Guards look after her. How many Irish regiments are there? Do you know? And and their participation in the wars, and are they recognised for it?
Well, in the Second World War, for instance, Ireland was neutral.
But we do have
There
Irish
were
regiments,
But a lot of
which is loyal to the Queen. There is the royal.
No. I mean, a lot of Irishmen joined the army. I mean, came over to England, joined the army, whatever. They were, I sort of think, basically quite mistreated by Ireland. They would have been thought of as being sort of like slight traitors. They would have been, and that would have continued for quite some time afterwards. Obviously, when people evolve in their sort of thinking, and history is revised constantly, so that disgrace has been, in a sense, sort of rectified. I believe that even in the Second World War, it took Ireland quite a long time to sort of acknowledge that the Jews were the Holocaust was sort of happening. I mean, that could be, if you think of the whole process of war, you're going to have a restriction on information. So people can only have ideas according to the amount of information that is sort of being fed. So it doesn't reflect on each individual. They are only as good as their thinking can be only as good as their information. And then you have a layer of sensitivity that leaves every question open to maybe my information is not adequate enough. So most grown-up people leave that space, that you have this amount of information, but you leave a space because you know it is possible that that information is a little bit askew.
All right, so the space I've left now is a little bit of Jamaica's history. Michael Manley, his father, he's Jamaican Prime Minister, I don't know if, his father served in the First World War, and there were lots of black soldiers from Africa, Caribbean, India, right? And it's only recently they have been given a memorial. It's actually in Marble Arch, and there was a Bajan friend of mine who wanted me to come down and do some stuff out there, and he's passed away, and I still haven't reached down there. But in Brixton, and I'm sure Sunday too, they got an ex-West Indian serviceman organization, and many of those folks there have not necessarily taken me under their wings, but from many years ago, I knew they existed. We had pilots, we had different regiments. One of the head of Carnival, Nottingham Carnival, Pepe Francis, is an ex-soldier, right? Now he probably would have been down at it's called the Windrush Square. At the Windrush Square, there is a sculpture memorial to the people who participated in the Second World War. Why am I getting emotional about this, right? And the funny thing, if we move on to the more militant kind of thing and a more political kind of thing, around there, during the Reparation March, we had, not this year, but last year, we had the girl who stood on the plinth in Bristol. Remember when they pulled down the statue? And so she started a political party, but at the Memorial March, at the Reparation March, which they have the 1st of August every year.
I've been on the Reparations March around Brixton.
Yeah.
It's not small.
Now, a couple of years ago, what the press focused on was these military folks, and I think they were actually ex-army, and the press did not focus on the cause or the reason why they were marching. They just focused on the paramilitary attitude of those folks there, but they were ex-soldiers themselves, right? So moving on to
and if they were dressed as hippies, they would use the opposite stigma. They would say they were the sort of great unwashed and and not to be taken seriously and too feminine and childish and what have you. So it's very hard for stigmatized people to actually, because if they are militarized, they make them enemy paramilitaries, and if they are strong and that they say that they so there's no way they can get out of the stigma, because the power holders are the ones that do the stigmatizing.
And I'm glad you brought on to the subject about the hippies, and because they're usually the ones that are protesting, yo, peace, man. And we've just finished 2 weeks of a thing called COP26. And I think 2 weeks ago when I made mention it to you guys, you're going, what? And these were, so part of the back end of that is the XR, the Extinction Rebellion, who says, oh, the world is gonna thing, and Boris Johnson went on and says, got 1 minute to midnight and the world's gonna end. And then we had people gluing their tongue or their faces to the ground, and they blocking traffic, right? And then we had a whole heap of protest in Scotland, and then we had Greta Thunberg, that young child. But before I ask the main question, anybody's comment on this young child who everyone seemed to follow behind, and she's the, what can you say, eco warrior, eco queen? Anybody comment?
I don't know enough about it, but I think to focus on a personality, right, detracts from the issue. I mean, it's good that there is a spokesperson, right? But the media make too much out of personalities. I mean the struggle against apartheid in South Africa was not Nelson Mandela. It was a lot of people whose names we don't know.
You see, Nelson Mandela was never the leader of the ANC. Oliver Tambo was, right? And he was over here several times. But anyway, that's a different thing. We'll go down that a different day. But back to the COP26, right? Now, what have you heard? So you heard 200 leaders flown in, and they all had a great...
Is it about global warming?
Yeah.
Me personally, I don't know if I believe in this whole global warming stuff.
Well, Donald Trump doesn't believe in global warming.
I don't know if I believe in it.
Nor does he believe in vaccinations, actually.
I believe
he
that, you know, there's a lot of things...
Yeah, global warming. So, Donald Trump doesn't believe in it. And I try to actually find the Paris Agreement, right? And
nor does Viktor Orban. There's a lot of far-right people, the AfD in Germany. It's funny because when I seen like YouTube videos, I remember seeing Owen Jones went onto an anti-vax video, an anti-vax group, right? And some of them were so mad they said that Boris Johnson was a communist because of the lockdown. So there are people who know nothing, right? And they tend they go to the right inexorably. Their ideas move to the right because they don't know very much, and they're quite pulled to the right. They know what they're against, but they don't know what they're for. So just they're able to say politics is bad and the governments are bad and we don't like them and we want to be like. We want to be contradictory, we want to be different, and then they kind of like they think, but by looking at something on social media, right, that somehow they've got some special unique knowledge which other people who are eggheads who sit in libraries and that studying, read by Karl Marx and some university professor, right, is a nonsense, because and they're the real people.
All right, okay. Shazz, what you saying about the global warming thing?
I mean, personally, you know what? I used to really think, if there is any global warming that is happening, if that is a big if, then it's down to a lot of the stuff that, we as people, human beings, are trying to do to the earth. And I think a lot of it is going against nature. You know, we've got GMO foods and all of these things going
Like
on.
abortion?
You know, animals becoming
Contraceptives?
extinct and all sorts of things like that. But me
Homosexuality?
personally, I don't really believe in this global warming thing because I just feel like, yeah, the government lie about a lot of things. Global warming, you know, if the world is going to destruct due to global warming, then that's something that we cannot control as human beings, and that's something we'd have to accept. If, however, there is a global warming pandemic or something going on, then I believe that a lot of it is to do with the way that we're living on the earth. That's it.
May you look like a typical XR person. They would.
Extinction Rebellion. Yeah.
they're exception with old norms.
I don't know.
You'd walk in there and they'd go, oh, our leader has come.
Oh!
Yeah.
What do you
Well,
think?
I think that as a species, where we tend to be utterly arrogant, really. I think we put ourselves on such a high pedestal.
Yeah, I agree with
I
you.
think we overconsume.
Yeah.
If we started by being a little bit more critical and a little bit more wise and consumed, had what we need and appreciate what we need. But here is the problem, is that if there are so many people and the idea of creating jobs for everybody, which was, the whole NHS started on the notion that absolutely everybody would be participating, everybody would have a job. So that's how that was the essence of
Well,
the
we ain't going to talk about how the Caribbean and West Indian became a safe.
So there is the dilemma, is that I actually believe that having purposeful work is meaningful work is essential to the idea of being a sort of mature person or a grown-up has a function. But the governments have made that into, you provide jobs for your mass of people by creating consumerism. And there I think is the problem. I think that the consumerism must be, if that were reanalyzed and presented to people, that it is understand what you need, understand what you value, and begin to think that on the whole less is a hell of a lot more.
Consumerism is another form of slavery.
Consumerism is the problem.
Yeah, well, I was going to touch on that as well, and I think that's how they keep us kind of in this hole. And I feel like what May said, just to touch on a bit about consumerism, this doesn't even just apply to things for me. Consumerism applies to animal eating as well, because eventually when there's no more animals to eat, then when we've over-consumed all the lamb, all the cows, all the beef, all the chicken, then what are we going to be eating?
Ourselves.
So,
We're back to cannibalism.
Yeah, well, do you understand what I'm trying to say? Me personally, I will not be eating people. I will be sticking to the greens and the natural stuff that grows. But this is my thing about over-consumerism. Materialism comes from consumerism as well. People materialize this. Again, people have lots of things. You know, they're always inventing things that we need. You know, we've gone from having a standard kitchen for having maybe like 1 or 2 gadgets to having a gadget for everything in the kitchen now. And then you've got gadgets for, you know, this, then gadgets for, so now you've got everything that can do something that we used to do ourselves. You know what I'm trying to say to you? So again, it's just more things to buy, consume, to replace us as human beings.
Now talking about consumerism, right? So as we're coming out, or if you believe...
Or as Karl Marx says, commodity fetishism.
Yes, okay. As we're coming out of lockdown, or there was
not coming out of lockdown, we've come out of lockdown.
Right, there was never a lockdown, some people would say. But are you... Now, it's about consumerism. One of the things that the government is driving is that you got to go out there, spend your money, you know, back to work. In fact, don't work at home anymore, get back to the office. Now, the question I'm asking the panel here is, what effect has the lockdown, what have you seen the effect the lockdown has on people around you? Have they gone mad? Have they gone crazy? May, you want to start?
I think I'm a little bit over selective in the sense that I tend to look for the things that are on the up rather than on the down. So what I look for, I will see. So if I'm not looking for the negative, I tend not to see it. So I will look for the positive. And what I've seen in the as a consequence of the lockdown, but very much thanks to the fact that a lot of people were furloughed, so they got a chance. What they got back was their own time. If you consider that a lot of people, you are working possibly 40 hours, but it's not 40 hours because then you are working also 2 hours to get to work and back again. So that's 60 hours or whatever. And in fact, you are doing more because you're paying a little bit of attention. So it's a lot of your week. So a lot of people had suddenly something that they have always valued, that they had time. And if you introduce an ingredient that you didn't have before, you're introducing change. And that's what I sort of thought, that a lot of people began to be aware of the fact that they had the opportunity to think and relax and reevaluate.
And have you seen people done that?
Yes, yes, a lot, absolutely a lot, and become much more friendly, and a hell of a lot.
All right, over to Graham now. So that £20.
But at the same time, I totally and utterly respect the fact that there are also people who are trying to keep their businesses, that they had spent all their energy in creating a business from a very hard beginning, and to see the possibility of that business that they worked at, not just for money, but for the pleasure and for the whole sort of whatever.
Can I just say, a lot of people during the COVID actually opened businesses?
Yeah.
There was a lot of businesses being open during COVID. So, I don't think it was a bad time for a lot of people. I think it was a time for people to kind of ground themselves as well, and kind of like what May said, kind of give themselves time to kind of reevaluate, life, how we was living, the whole work situation. People were like, hold on, do I really want to spend all this time giving it away to a company? And people made up their minds to open a lot of businesses, online businesses. And there was even, I think, did I read it somewhere or on the news somewhere, that basically there were thousands of businesses open during the COVID. So COVID didn't, stop everything from happening. I think it stopped people to just be, for a while.
It was change that was the stimulus.
Yes, definitely. There was change, and I feel like everybody being still was kind of made us more aware of ourselves in some way, shape or form, which I definitely think was a positive change.
Right. Before Graham may come in, one of the things I'm looking for, I'm going to aim that at you, Shazz, is that the demographics. So some people, their position was actually on the edge as it is. They've sunk even lower. Some people there has actually gone up. Some of the people who's gone lower has got a lot of mental problems, or you see certain actions and reactions from them which isn't normal. Have you come across that, or?
I think the mental thing, yeah, definitely, because even myself, I feel like I was really enjoying the quiet roads and quiet buses and the quiet everything, and obviously didn't realise during the lockdown, after the lockdown, I came so grounded being used to being in my home and not going out as much, even though that was kind of like my life genuinely before the lockdown. So when the lockdown lifted, then I realised, hold on a minute, I have a bit of social anxiety, too many people around, I feel a bit, ooh. So yeah, I think it did kind of cause, and obviously there was a lot of talks about mental health rising, and people not being able to interact, with neighbours and family, like that had a toll on people's mental health and mental well-being also. So I think there was some positive changes for a lot of people, but there also obviously there's polarities, negative and positive go side and side. So the negative side would be that a lot of people did suffer more from mental health problems and, you know, felt maybe isolated, or people that didn't have anybody, you know, to visit or to call, or didn't have family or friends. So a lot of people, there was a lot of suicides as well, not just adults, young people too. So yeah, there was positive and negative.
Graham, on the more, the 20 pounds uplift and then the downlift or downdraft.
Well, that is just, it's really terrible because, you know, I'm on JSA and it's really hard, and I have an overall wash. I can't use the bath. I've used my the cottage courses I've done to use the shower. It's been a struggle, and I've been criticised over that. But then everyone that's poor gets criticised. So really, I've had less criticism in these last 2 years, and my mental health has improved because I've met lots of bigots, and they're always bullying, and I've met less of them, and thank fuck for that. I wish they would all fuck off and die. But I really,
don't express
my mental
yourself.
health has got better because I haven't met these assholes. The thing is that that's just subjectively. Now, subjectively, I don't know what would say, because I don't want to go into moral panic mode about has mental health got better, has it not. I don't know what people's situation, maybe it's been a mixed bag on that level. I know that mental health was getting much worse due to austerity, but that was due to poverty, and a lot of poverty that caused mental health. So if there's been a slight break with a little bit of financial assistance, and now it's been taken away again, and of course I can understand why people's mental health will get worse due to poverty, because they'll be, you know, it's horrible being poor, and I think that
to be poor is a crime.
The poor people are always forgotten all the time. We walk past them. We assume that somebody sitting on the sitting on the pavement is enjoying themselves, has alcohol and drink problems. It's a nice easy mental excuse for denial. It's a denial, and it's a denial of the fact that we were, due to some great morals thing we have inside us, won't ever be in that position. So we have this mixed relationship to very wealthy people, where we resent the unfairness of that, but we also admire them because somehow they're strong and they're winners, and they stood up on their feet, and they provide jobs, or they run the economies, or they do other wonderful things. And a lot of that comes from early conditioning, especially religions and nationalism, early conditionings, hierarchical ideas where we look up to the powerful and down on the powerless, and it becomes unconscious and a deeply. And I had hoped that these 2 years would shake up that way of thinking. I don't think it has, but for some people it has, and that's been very useful, because we've yet to see. History's going to play ourselves, and we don't know.
Right, let me leave you at that point. Let's see. Funny, on my way here, I saw the police officers surround this young lady just out there, and then when I looked, there had a police car there, and they had a flashing blue light. And this young lady they surrounded was actually homeless. She still is homeless, but she's also got a mental problem as well. During the lockdown,
a visible mental problem. Lots of bankers have mental problems, right? But they managed to have barriers, and they're protected, and we don't know that. We never know about the mental health problems of people that are wealthy. The only person who's in the ruling classes who's talked about it is that Meghan Markle, and she was harangued for that, because that really mental health problems are always associated with the poor. The poor have more
I
stresses.
don't believe that. I disagree.
Whether they're manifested as more mental health problems, I don't know. I don't really know enough about the mental health field.
What's that guy that does that
say
show,
this.
that presents the show, QI? Do you know his name?
Okay, go on.
Right, so he's been there's a few celebrities that have come out and talk about mental health. Just goes to show if you read newspapers or watch people's stories. He presents QI. I can't remember his name
Go
right
on,
now.
carry on,
He suffers with let me think.
Bipolar.
That's it.
Yeah.
He suffers.
Only
with
celebrities suffer.
Right. Yeah. Bipolar. He suffers with but you
Maybe
know,
they're bisexual.
there's many different there's different levels of mental health. You know, it starts from anxiety, depression.
Do you remember that black gymnast?
Which one?
She.
Simone Biles.
Yes, she actually didn't finish the.
Yeah.
And
because
she
of
said.
the mental health.
And there was a tennis player as well. But anyway, carry on.
Yeah, but this is the thing. I don't believe that mental health is a poor people's problem. It's a people problem. Whether people that have money talk about these things or they go to a good therapist and get through it, it's different, because if you have money and you have a mental health, you're going to get different treatment because you can afford, but if you're poor and you have mental health, you don't always get the treatment. Yeah, they will just give you, if you're poor or you're, below a certain, they'll just give you a few drugs.
You could get a treatment from a truncheon. You could get a water cannon. I mean, there are lots of treatments. You could good old-fashioned treatment of the five knuckles. That's wonderful.
You remind me of that scene from
Refreshing.
Terminator where the co-star, the woman, is actually in an institute. Right?
Oh, right, yeah.
And the abuse. Some of the abuse she went through was like horrifying. But anyway, let me get. So on my way here, so this lady now, so she's surrounded by 4 police officers, and I walk past and I realize I know her. She does know me because
it could have been a romance, and you could have misinterpreted it. They could have found her very attractive.
I'm waiting for the end of the story. Hold on.
Well, I know they didn't arrest her because I stood back and
Observed.
Because the police stations are full.
Yeah, most probably. Oh, they didn't want the paperwork.
And they didn't want to give her a place to sleep on a meal.
So what happened?
So she's a very clever girl. Anyway, so they didn't arrest her, but her history is this. So she's on that part of the park, but normally she's on the manor house side, and she had her things on the street, her cardboard sleeping thing on the street.
Yeah.
And sometimes she's actually somewhere else, and I had said to her, listen, they're taking your stuff away. She goes, oh, run and go. And I said, no, you go, it's your thing, right? So she's been sectioned a couple of times, and she's back out. So some people call her Sandra, but she's of Mediterranean descent, right? Very clever girl. She's been sectioned twice. One of the things I've heard, she got into conflict with another girl, and she bit off the girl's ear, right? So it tells you that
You're only allowed to do that in a boxing ring.
No, she's definitely in her head.
It tells you that a woman, woman is not just a weak thing.
That's deep pressure.
Well,
coming from
pressure.
There's
lots of things you can do to defend yourself. But right off someone's head.
And to do it without using salt and pepper.
Cannibal.
Imagine, look.
Oh, we're back to the
Cannibal stuff, like
salt,
eating airs now, yeah?
with salt, pepper, and a little bit of soy sauce.
Seasoning.
Delicious.
But somebody has to have a lot of problems that haven't been that either that person has been able to attend to, or society or whatever has not been able to come to such a pitch that happens. One of the things in a situation like that is time is the factor. That is an accumulation of distress.
I'll give you that side story to her.
That doesn't happen in the moment. That has been.
I get what you're saying. It's something that comes over time.
Something like that could have been avoided and would have been avoided if situations.
There needed to be a risk assessment done for her. Yeah. Clearly, one was done.
I'll give you a side story to her, then I'll move on to my observation about the Batman. There was a guy. Actually, he's still there. He's madly in love with her, right? Madly in love with her, and he calls her my queen, right? And I sit there and I
Is he
chat.
homeless too?
Yeah.
No,
Oh, okay.
no, he's of Irish descent, but that doesn't mean of Irish descent.
Oh, okay.
Right.
Yeah.
And he's madly in love with her, right? And I sit there and he goes, Pat, have you seen my queen? He says, oh, I am James Bond, you know.
He's crazy too then.
Well,
Yeah.
look, during lockdown and the world out there, and you know, it's life, Jim, but not as we know it, or not as when we go home and we look at that square box, and this is where I fall out with looking at movies and things and what have you. Oh, by the way, I saw a lovely Harry Potter cartoon animation called Peter Rabbit. Oh, they done it really, really nice.
Harry Potter, Peter Rabbit.
Not Harry Potter, Peter Rabbit. It's from the old English tale about the rabbits. Anyway, life as we know it. Oh, and how that comes in, because what they were showing was this most ideal world. They had a guy who worked in Harrods, and they had a middle class, big home and what have you, and a lovely garden and a lovely woman there who loves animals and stuff. Life is not like that. Back to Sandra there, back to my friend there who's deeply in love with her, right? So, but that is a true story. That's a real story. That is part of the lockdown.
But the story is unfinished. It is the fact that, I mean, she's still alive or whatever. There is nothing to say that her situation, given the proper attention, couldn't change into...
Some people are really a lost cause when it comes to, I shouldn't say lost cause, but some people are really far gone. Me personally, I've worked with mental health as a support worker, and to be fair, a lot of these people, they, like you said, it's not just something that happens overnight. That a lot of these people come from traumatic children backgrounds, and then they go into adulthood, and then they go through more traumatic stuff,
I mean,
and then they don't want to deal with society no more, so they choose to withdraw from society. And this is what, going back to what Graham said, a lot of them aren't just, you know, poor people with mental health. A lot of these people came from educational backgrounds. A lot of people that we see homeless on the street had jobs, had homes, had families, were married, and sometimes life can just be, like you said, the gym of life. It's just too much for people, so they just, this is my take of it, they tend to kind of withdraw from society and not want nothing to do with it, because they're just tired of that whole kind of, you know, rigmarole of life, just working, paying bills, and you know, that society is not for everybody, and some people just don't want to be a part of it, and I feel like a lot of people
it makes you place your emphasis on children, really, because if there are so many adults who are really on the edge of where it would be hard to conceive of their life becoming especially better, that it would be almost a question of not making sure that it doesn't get any worse. But if you place your emphasis on children, I mean, the children are growing up. Everybody looks after children, not just the parents, but everybody who is around children responds to children as they should.
Then we would have less broken adults.
Then you are going to have progress. You are most definitely going. You are guaranteed to have progress.
Have you followed the Britney Spears saga?
You know I haven't.
Yes, victory! Hooray! Victory, she's free!
Alright. Okay, do you want to fill us in?
Well, Britney.
Basically, she was a teenage star who became famous very quickly for "Hit Me Baby One More Time" song. And in that, it was basically, you know, she became famous, and then she, you know, from what we've seen in the media, she went crazy. This is how they've portrayed it.
I remember when she shaved the
full her head. She went crazy, she shaved off all her head. But again, when you look at the story, people were just saying, you know, she was just trying to rebel, the control, like the whole celebrity and the having
rebel
money
against the dictatorship.
And that was just way too much for her, so she kind of was trying to regress against it. They've tried to bring her back, she's been on TV shows, but you can see Britney Spears is not the same person. Her dad had a lot of control, I think, to do with her finances and was controlling a lot and, you know, pushing her out to be out there. Again, like Amy Winehouse's dad. A similar kind of thing, you know, like they see the coins like, oh yeah, if you keep doing that, we can get paid.
I think that's actually really interesting because it can happen with parents who, in a sense, haven't been aware of their own talent. And,
Living their dreams
and then
for their
when they
children.
have their children and they see that their children has talent, they forget that they should develop themselves.
Yeah, I agree with May.
Look after their children, but develop themselves.
And then you
And
can
allow
develop
the child to
children.
develop its own talent, but not superimpose their
I totally agree with you.
and whatever.
I totally agree with you. That was the
and
case.
then put an artificial pressure on the children in the notion that they are loving and supporting and whatever.
Because I feel like Amy Winehouse's situation could be very much prevented, but she even made a song about it as well. They tried to make me go to rehab,
I think
and I said no.
Brilliant.
And
Brilliant.
apparently, according to some of the documentaries that I've watched about her, her dad said to her, no, she's fine, she doesn't need to go to. So again, it was encouragement from someone that, you know, you look up to, that you respect, that's, you know, not encouraging you to do the right thing, which was go to rehab. So, you know, had she went to rehab, she might have been allowed to.
Talking about rehab, Katie Price. Yeah, anybody follow the story on that?
Oh, that woman just...
So she had an accident and crash, and then she went to rehab for a couple of weeks.
We talked about this a few weeks ago.
But the story continues. She's now out. She's gone to where we got the casinos, Las Vegas, to get married. But she has mental problems, and she goes there. I've got mental problems. But back to our girl there. The conservatorship, right? And her father had complete control over her life.
Yeah.
Right. It's now ended.
Oh, she got her control back of
Yeah.
herself now.
It's now.
She had to take him to court and stuff. Isn't she?
Let's make conservatorship great again.
So she's now ended and she's now in full control. So now her lawyers are thinking, shall they sue the father because the money that's in her account is, I think, 60 million. They said it should be much more. So they kind of saying, where's the rest of the
What
money?
is she doing, right? Taking his money away. I mean, you know, all
His
she
or
did,
her money?
all she
Her
did
money.
was sing and dance and that. I mean, basically, he's the patriarch. He's her father, and so he's basically should get all the money that she earns.
How old is she?
After
She's
all,
grown now.
She's probably in her 30s now.
Yeah, she's probably about maybe similar. She might be maybe about 38, 39.
look, if women
can't
were
be
created to become
Yeah.
successful, they wouldn't be made from the rib of a man.
If you believe that.
He's trying to be controversial.
Yeah, we know.
But on the conclusion
Attention
here.
seeking.
So we started off with a more personal question.
Would you like a rib? Do you like a rib?
Spare rib. There is a magazine called
It's not
Spare Rib.
spare.
Listen, I used to buy spare. I loved it. And when I
There's no
was
such thing
when I
as
was
no
in
ribs coming
If
when I
you're
was on the
vegan,
access
spare
course
ribs are
in
really
Bristol, in Bristol, I used to give them to some sort of the I used to give them to some of the women on the course, and they liked it. And it
gave
was
them a
much
spare
better
rib?
than talking.
It's a magazine.
I gave them a spare rib. Yo,
You had one spare to give them.
yeah, and it was Brilliant magazine, and they didn't know, because they thought, being young, they thought feminism was a modern thing, but in fact it started a long time before. Yeah, and so when they read the Spare Rib, it was amazing. You know, they read about their...
Well, they're going to bring it back now. All right, let me go to
Very good.
a concluding question, which is a more personalized one. Is how you guys see Christmas, and what would you be looking forward to?
Forward.
Would it be the same like last
Well, I
year?
hope that the turkeys don't vote for it like again.
All right. We start with May. What is it you like? Is it the snow? Is it the cold weather? Is it
Snow.
keeping warm?
You're making me feel cold.
Christmas, welcome.
Uh,
And remember in the park, people did snowmen. Oh, the park was
Yeah.
brilliant. And
Let's
look,
not talk about snow.
Yeah. I mean, Christmas, I think we might possibly celebrate Christmas. There are quite a few people who are coming here to our lovely club
Oh, yes.
who say that they haven't got the traditional sort of like elements of sort of family, and wouldn't it be nice to have to celebrate Christmas here?
Yeah.
And it sounds like a lovely possibility.
Yeah.
Something we
Celebration.
haven't done before.
Tis the season to be jolly.
Yeah,
La, 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 la.
So
That's the only bit I like.
so I think I'm going to have multiple Christmases.
Oh,
here.
nice.
Why not? The idea of having an opportunity to do something that is pleasurable with an element of sort of tradition and this and that and the other. See how it is, see what it turns out like. So yeah, I mean, apart from that sort of as far as I'm concerned, every day is Christmas. So.
Graham, Christmas. Is it a time of fun or a time of...
They tried to make me save me up for my heating, and I said,
No,
snow,
no, no.
snow, snow.
That was the first time you actually made me laugh.
So, do you look forward to it? The snow, the cold,
The turkey,
the weather,
the
the
bacon.
people, snowball fights, or just standing there freezing?
It never, if you're going to, I mean, it never snows at Christmas.
Oh, yes, it has.
Anyway,
Well, in which case, put a bet on it, and you're going to be a rich lady for
Meatballs
I don't want it to
roasted
snow,
on an
so-
open
I don't know
fire.
if I wanted to make that bet because I don't want it to snow.
Little kitties by your knees.
oh, the Santa.
Merry Christmas.
Have you seen what's happened over the years about kids
and
sitting on
me.
Santa's knee?
No,
What?
let's.
About the what's the check? The deep check. You have the police check on kids sitting on
DBS.
Santa's knee. DBS.
Yeah,
It's not allowed now, is it?
Huh? If you haven't got a DBS check, it's not allowed.
No, it's not allowed. Kids are not allowed to sit on Santa's knee now.
Well, me personally, they should have introduced this from a long time because, like, some random guy has got all these kids just come on, sit on my knee, you know.
Especially when he goes, oh.
Two knees. One knee is Harvey Weinstein. The other one is Prince Andrew.
All right, far left.
Graham, have you said your bit about Christmas? What you want Christmas? Do you want to make a Christmas wish? There's an angel. What do you call it? An angel flying around. Oh, I love the ad. One of the Christmas ad. They've got what's her name? Dawn French, and they actually got her being overweight and stuff. An overweight angel flying around like that.
Okay.
So they get it more thing. But the Christmas angel with the sprinkly thing gonna make you a wish. What kind of wish you?
Oh, if I had to make a wish, well, I would wish that everybody on Christmas Day has a very lovely, relaxed day that they enjoy on their own terms.
Graham, well, you haven't finished your. Give us something joyful. The drumming.
All I want for Christmas is our £20 back. Our £20
Yeah.
back. Yes, our £20
And how
back.
many million
Because I
people?
can just have Christmas, yes, our £20 back. And then I can have a vegan turkey.
And what about the old age pensioners? Would they be able to survive it?
Old
Anyway.
age pensioners? No,
Because
let them
Eat cake.
let them eat social care provision.
Shazz, what's your
Well,
vision?
me personally, I'm just going to be keeping it 100. I don't really do the whole celebration for Christmas anymore. We used to do the traditional Christmas at my nan's house and have the family dinner and the turkey and the dessert and all the food, which, you know, for me,
Can I come?
traditionally, I like the food. That's what food consists of Christmas. But since we don't do the traditional food and dinner at my nan's house, it's usually my mum and the children, and I do all the cooking. So I don't mind eating, but the cooking part is, yeah, it is a lot. But the part that I do like to be jolly is the time to be jolly. So yes, I will be very jolly, stuff in my face. That's my Christmas.
Well, I sometimes, well, not so much now. We have the big family gathering and Christmas and whatever, and we tended to end up picking on one member of the family, and usually
Yeah.
ends up, you know, it's kind of not all the time. I mean, eventually I realized that's what we were doing. We always take the pick on somebody, and everybody like piles in. Oh, and I'm
Yeah,
thinking,
yeah,
no.
yeah.
It's right. But no, my Christmas normally it's because I do many things socially. It's usually very busy because I've got a lot of people who are doing different events and stuff. So I'm always at many different events.
Oh, many different houses.
Unfortunately, in the last couple of years, the only place I could manage to go is the bloody park and speak to the squirrels. Because remember, we're on lockdown. We're not supposed to see anybody. Remember, we weren't allowed to see.
What about the ducks?
You've got to avoid them this year because we got the bird flu, right? And it's coming on. It's coming on different countries now. It's in Europe, right? It's actually already here.
Well, it can't be worse than the bloody COVID.
Well, if we add that
we
to
had swine flu already. We had the pig one as well. They all kind of surpassed us. Swine flu, bird flu, foot and mouth. We've had them all. We've had all the animal flus, man.
COVID.
I remember when I was a child, there was myxomatosis when all the rabbits.
Okay.
Sort of, they had bulbous and whatever, and really awful and sort of.
Watership down there.
Are they sick though?
Yeah, no, they all died. They all
You see, Australia never got over that.
Yeah.
That's why.
I remember as a child.
Yeah.
I think I was about 5 or 6 years old.
Okay.
And that was the sort of like, and I mean, my father absolutely loved all animals. I mean, he was a farmer, but
and he ate some of them.
No. This is the sort of thing that I grew up in a tradition where the farming community looked after their animals and appreciated their animals as much as any person that I've ever sort of like met. There is an appreciation of what is around you and what supports you and what is your heritage, really. But I remember the myxomatosis from a child.
So,
like seeing.
So I usually have many places to go, and I hear there might be something happening here with a Christmas tree. So
yeah,
that could be one of them. But no, generally I've got loads of different promoters, loads of people in entertainment. No, last year, the year before,
nothing.
Zilch, right?
So
the only place I could go
stuff to go on.
was the park, right? And remember, you guys forget, right? You weren't allowed to mix with your own family. Remember? You was like only 2 people allowed or 3 people allowed, and they had to stay in the backyard. Remember? And there were people in nursing homes where people were actually standing there in the back, trying to talk to them. Remember?
Actually, to be honest, I've forgotten. I now you've said it, I remember, but I've forgotten. But in a way, it didn't. I heard about these things and they were horrible, but it didn't personally affect me. But it was horrible. Yes, it wasn't awful, but I don't know, it's like I've kind of forgotten about all that.
Even out in the park, remember, there was limits, there was only 6, right? And it wasn't inside, you had to be outside in the garden. There was no mixing of other families, right? You guys have forgotten that?
Yeah,
I used to walk.
That was the absolute tragedy of the COVID.
Yeah, I was only the telephone calls.
Must be the absolute tragedy.
The only contact I had was telephone calls, and it's funny. I don't know. I don't know. I don't think I felt lonely. I think I just adapted to it, and say I went for a long walk, sometimes a run, and then I. Called somebody, they called me back and we had enormously long conversations. Now, what's funny now is I've still got their phone number. When I call them up, they're always busy and then they don't call back, so,
People had time, like May said, during the COVID, people had time. Now people got no time.
Alright, so I mentioned Crazy Sandra on the way in. So she was one of the characters that I spent Christmas with, and that was not necessarily spent Christmas with. So I'll come out and there's a group of people who should be...
Keep your hands to yourself.
But instead of using the word crazy, if you use the word disturbed,
That's even worse.
That's even worse.
Because I could call you crazy, right? And it can be affectionate. And you could call me crazy. Oh, that crazy passion.
Okay, I take that back. I accept your interpretation as having a sort of...
Alright, so, you know what phrase I use? I said, you crazy people have kept me sane. So the crazy people I was around kept me actually sane. So that was one of the people. So
Yeah,
with
but there's true crazy people do. I prefer crazy people. But there's a limit. If they're too crazy, if they're aggressive, or they can be too much. But I actually prefer people that are a bit crazy. I don't like.
Is that because
too
you're
straight.
crazy yourself as well, do you think?
This is subjective.
It takes one to know
I
one.
prefer the objective
yeah.
than the subjective on this level.
So the loose. So I literally said to them, I said, "You crazy people kept me sane, right?" So that was last year.
And they said that's presuming on your part.
No, we all part of the same
Yeah,
crazy
yeah,
thing,
right,
you know.
right.
Crazy.
And
The craze.
including the one that was madly in love. Yeah.
Hello.
Including the one that was madly in love with Sandra, and he's still madly in love, and that story will probably continue, you know. But that's all part of the world we're in, or the world that I exist in. But yeah, so there were Christmases when the snow fell, right? And I saw this beautiful. Somebody made a snowman, but this was so.
That was the 9th of February. That's when it snowed last year.
All right, right. But the years before, somebody did the bench. They did a snowman on the bench, sitting on the bench.
Yeah.
But what was cute about it? They did the dog.
Oh, did
A
you
dog
take
in
a
snow.
photograph?
Yeah, I think I got it somewhere,
Ah.
right? And it was really
Yeah.
different.
It
and-
amused you.
yeah.
There were there were some very nice snow things. Yeah, there were some really good.
Right.
Yeah.
And as I was saying to some friends,
People
Okay,
did
let-
creative things.
So
didn't
let
they?
it snow at Christmas then.
No.
People
let
did
it
creative
not.
things.
we had some amazing things in the park. So as I was saying to some
Yes,
friends
yes, yes.
for the following year, says, if it snows again, we're going to do an igloo, right? Because all you need is something a template, a square kind of template. You get the snow, and you got a brick, right? Just a square thing, like you could make it out of wood, or you could. Yeah, and we could actually start
We
building
have to have
out.
a lot of snow for that. And I
Oh,
don't-
sometimes it does.
Sometimes it
Oh,
does.
sometimes it
I don't
does.
think we've had snow that big
And
since
the
maybe the
snow that we
80s.
had,
early
we
No,
had
no,
that
no,
some
no,
stuff
recent
that
time, believe me.
disintegrate.
Like
Like,
last
I'm talking about like when we used to have snow up to here, like you know, we don't have snow like that now, and I don't think we've had that.
But
kind of
because
snow for a long
of
time.
because of climate change, which doesn't exist.
Yeah.
Because of that thing that didn't happen and it's not true, there's been a slow sort of warming of the climate, so we rarely see that snow or just.
Anyway, we're not going to reheat.
That's enough about
Reheat.
snow.
Reheat. Oh, by the way, I'm not even going to go there.
Yeah.
All right. So from the panel, right? So from me,
Bye bye.
Bye bye.
Adios.
adios. Red 55 99 TV. Google it. Tell your friends about it.